Hi, and welcome to Yoga at Go-Go. My name is Francesca, and I'm a yoga teacher. This podcast is dedicated to all the yoga passionate, but also to the yoga curious, who still maybe haven't tried yoga yet. I'm sharing my ideas, my thoughts, and experiences in the yoga world with you, so that I can make this beautiful practice more accessible for all of you. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Yoga at Go-Go. If you have never listened to any of my episodes, my name is Francesca and I'm a yoga teacher who lives in Berlin. And this podcast is dedicated to the yoga curious, the yoga passionate, everyone that maybe is still not a yoga practitioner but will be interested to start. And this episode in particular is dedicated to alignment. I started a conversation already a few days ago on my Instagram page. And if you don't follow me, you can find me on Instagram at Francesca_Carossino. And this is a topic that I like a lot because there are so many different truths about this topic. And I want to start a conversation also in here on my podcast, and I want to keep an open mind with the idea that most probably this is not going to be the only episode about alignment that I'm going to do. If you listen to my previous episodes, you might know that I started my yoga journey practicing Bikram yoga. And I still practice this class to this day, and I also teach it in a couple of studios here in Berlin. And I actually want to start from here, as I believe is a pretty unique type of class for what concerns alignment. So if you have never practiced this class, you can find more about it in the very first episode, how to choose your yoga style. And in this episode, I want to talk about it from the teacher perspective and what happens from the teacher's side. Because I believe it's pretty unique what happens in this class, as anywhere you will go in the world, you will never be surprised by what the teacher says, as every teacher follows the same script. This doesn't mean that the teacher will say all the time the exact same words, but that means that there is a script and the teacher will use it as a big reference during the class. And this script, of course, didn't exist at the beginning when this sequence was, let's say, invented. This script was created in a second moment when there was the necessity of making new teachers, making a lot more teacher, and making sure that all these teachers knew exactly what to say. Taking a little step back, the other day I mentioned the book My Body, My Yoga by Bernie Clark, where he actually explains how suddenly there was a big necessity for making new yoga teachers, and how there was the necessity for creating some rules to guide these new yoga teachers. In the past, teachers were made by just practicing the same class with the same teacher, and eventually having to substitute the teacher maybe for sick leave or other reasons, I guess. But there was no teacher training. There were no programs to create teachers, because there was no request for so many teachers. But then suddenly, towards the 80s, the 90s, the request was so much higher that there was a big necessity for making new teachers. And the only way was to create programs that in a very short amount of time will make sure that there was some information passed to these people, and they were somehow able to lead a class. So in the example of the Bikram class, all the students leaving teacher training will have to know by heart the script. And in other teacher training, they will have to remember the cues to put the students in the specific positions. And here I really want to say that I'm appreciative for these people who found some rules that could fit the bodies. But the thing is, there is no average body. There is not one body that is in the middle and that you can find in a group of people and it says, that's the average body. When we say that everybody is unique, we don't need a proof of that because it's a fact. We cannot look like somebody else in the exact same way. There is gonna be always something that is different from even our twin brother, twin sister. So that's a pretty easy concept to grasp to all of us. And that will also make us think a little on how will a rule apply to everybody if everybody is not the same. And that's why it shouldn't be a rule. It should be a sort of guideline. One of my very good friends and colleague once told me, like, triangle, it's a shape that we find in geometry. It's not a shape that we find in the human body. It's such a simple but powerful image. Like in yoga, we call one of the posture triangle. There are so many variations of triangle, but the idea is to put your body into a geometric shape, which is a triangle. And as teacher, we use geometry so often. We say things like, bring your two heels in one line, your arms parallel to the floor, your spine perpendicular to the floor, and we can go on forever. There are so many geometrical cues, and geometry doesn't really fit in our human body. I think geometry is our brain trying to give sense to something that is so difficult to comprehend. We are so different from one to the other. The shape of our body changes constantly from one person to the other, but also within ourselves. We are in constant transformation from the moment we are born till the moment we die. Our body keeps changing, and even in one single day you can see a transformation in your body. You might wake up in the morning, your belly is flat, and you might go to sleep in the evening and your belly is bloated. You might wake up with some ache in your shoulders, and then during the day this ache will start to lose. So it's so hard to give an explanation of what is going on in our body that our brain needs some sort of rules. All this rambling about geometry to say that, for example, right now in my career, I don't care so much about alignment. I care that my students have a full experience. I make sure that they don't try to hurt themselves while they're practicing yoga. And but also about that, they are responsible about themselves, about their own body. Everybody is. I'm there to guide them, to create space and support for them. But if I see, for example, somebody doing a specific posture in a not very geometrical way, and they look like they are having a bliss, I'm not going there to interrupt that moment. And I will be very upset if someone does that to my practice too. For example, right now I'm practicing mainly at home, online with on-demand classes, so nobody can really correct me. And I'm also recovering from a surgery, so I'm in my own space, and I'm happy. I'm really happy to just do as much as I can. And I'm rediscovering my own body, and every day I try something a little different, but it doesn't really matter if it doesn't look like a geometrical shape. I feel good. I feel amazing that I can just move my body again. And that's what it is. That's what yoga is about. Is moving the body to make sure that you can sit in meditation for a long period of time. And one of the reasons why people believe alignment is very important in yoga is the idea that without alignment, you can really hurt yourselves. And this is something I discussed in one of my last posts on Instagram. I believe that, for example, when I started my yoga practice, I certainly didn't know anything about alignment. I was just trying as much as I could to do some of the poses, and certainly I wasn't pushing myself really hard. I was just trying my best. And this is also what I see as a teacher. Newcomers, I believe they are rarely in the position of being in danger. So I don't believe alignment is there to protect us from injuries. I actually think, in some extent, it could potentially injure our body when we strive for a perfect line in a body that is not meant to be in a perfect line. We are certainly following alignment, but I don't believe we are doing ourselves any favor, and we are not protecting ourselves from injuries. So my idea about this is the best way to prevent ourselves from injuries is to use our bodies, and also to use them in different ways all the times. Being stubborn and believing that we are not able to do a certain movement and avoid the movement for the rest of our lives will probably not lead us to an injury, but if we have a previous injury, maybe to never get better, if it makes any sense. For example, right now, I cannot do some specific movements, but every day I try to go a little bit deeper, and I test myself, of course, being always careful not to hurt myself. But if now I cannot do a cobra pose, that doesn't mean that I cannot do it for the rest of my life. So my opinion is move the body, whether it's in one line or in a wavy shape, as long as you move the body. And that's the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. And I would love to keep the conversation open about this topic. So please share your opinion about this topic. You can write me privately. You can write a comment. I don't know if in Spotify is something possible, but I upload this episode as well on YouTube and on Apple Podcast. And you can write me also on Instagram. This is a topic that I'm really passionate about, so any opinion is valuable for me, and also is a way to learn more about it. And yes, for this episode, this is all today. And I will be back next week with a new episode about injuries. And in the meantime, I wish you a good practice and a wonderful rest of your day. Ciao.